My name is Kenny Turbish. I work over in Campus Recreation Department, and we've been partnering this year with OHP. And this week is Body Week, and I am extremely excited for our speaker tonight. Julie was one of our employees and formerly known as the Plex. She was a fitness trainer, a personal trainer, and a group fitness trainer. And I believe you worked 3 years for us when you were at Boston College.
Oh my God, it's my old boss.
I did.
Yes, and her old boss is actually in here tonight too, our former fitness director. So I'm gonna stop talking and let Julie take it away.
It's like the band is back together. Thanks for the intro, Kenny. Hi guys, it's so good to be here. My name is Julie Ohlemacher, as Kenny said. Although at BC, I was Julie Wino, and yes, that was my last name, Wino. I'm seeing questions about recording. Yes, this will be recorded. So I press record, so don't worry, this will be recorded. But yeah, I spent 3 years of my Boston College career working at the Plex and became lovingly referred to as Plex Girl. But today I actually have my own business. I work as an intuitive eating and body image coach. And today really I'll share with you not only some like foundational truths that I wish so badly I knew when I was in college. I'll also share a really powerful framework with you guys for how do you build a really loving, wonderful relationship with your body. But before I do those things, I think it's really important that we start with kind of giving you guys more background on who I am and my story. I'll also leave about 15 minutes for Q&A as well. I'll try to leave 15 minutes. I'm a talker. But I have a feeling that my story might resonate with a few of you. And I'm going to try my best to give my Cliff Notes version. But it really starts back in the 5th grade. Okay, I promise I won't go that deep. But I do mention the 5th grade because 5th grade Julie was really, really confident. I mean, I walked around Holy Family School as confident as could be, thinking I was the best. And this is a very stark difference because all of a sudden 6th grade happened. And I remember that's when things really started to change for me and my own relationship to my body. And when I have thought, a lot back on what changed, like what changed from confident little 5th grade Julie had a massive gap between my 2 front teeth, frizzy hair, like what changed from that confident Julie to then the 6th grade Julie who was totally, worried all the time about her body, how she looked, how others were seeing her. And there were many things, but I'll just say the big thing that I remember was this Pilates DVD commercial. And it was the first time that I can really remember directly having this message thrown at me of here's a before and after. Here is this woman's body before and it was terrible. And now here's her body after and it's like so great. And I really started to realize, oh my gosh, okay, there's a right and wrong way to have a body. Now I'm sure honestly, based on the research and what I know today, I got these messages way before then, but that's the first time I ever distinctly remember really digesting that, okay, there's a right or wrong way to have a body. And that started me on going to the gym. As early as I was 12 years old, that was the youngest you could be to be admitted into our neighborhood rec center. I would go on the elliptical. I started counting calories. I'd steal my mom's Weight Watchers journal and I'd count points. And soon it was like food became my enemy. And soon I started to feel really, really out of control around food. And then the binging began. And it just really felt like this huge battle between me and food and me and my body. And the diet thoughts, really started then. They started in middle school, right? As young as that. And they really did continue throughout high school. But I feel like in high school for me, it was like they were kind of dormant. It was like a bear in hibernation. Definitely still a lot of brain space was being taken up. But luckily I had plenty of things in high school to distract me from really spiraling downwards. But then college happened. And I'm sure as many of you have experienced, I went from being the big fish in a really small pond of my high school to being a really small fish in the massive competitive world of Boston College. And, I went from being vice president of student council to just like your average student, and from the newspaper editor to, being rejected from the Heights, and from being Liesl Von Trapp in my school musical to not getting into the a cappella group, and from being like a dancer in my show choir to not getting onto Fuego. And I swear I tried out for every different student group on campus and got rejected from them all. And then, of course, I quickly learned, oh, I gotta say goodbye to my identity as this 4.0 student. I learned really quickly that, a B at Boston College was gonna have to be good enough for me. It was a whole different academic ballgame than what I was used to. And of course, the whole, making friends thing, that was a whole other, piece of the puzzle. And so looking back, I can see, wow, no, it's no wonder that things unfolded as they did. Because I realize now, I can see how much I was floundering, especially in my freshman year. I went from having this like perfect girl persona nailed down in high school. The good grades, the president, all those things, as most Boston College students are, right? To then being in college and kind of feeling like I was a nobody. And that's when that hibernating bear of diet thoughts that had been in my brain really started to wake up. And I didn't know it then, of course. This was not a conscious thing then, but I can look back now and see when I threw myself into fitness, I was just desperately trying to prove my worth, right? I was searching for something that would make me valuable in the eyes of others. Because for so long, I had attached my worth to all these other accomplishments. And when they seemed to vanish, then there I was without anything to prove that I was worthy to other people, right? All my worth evaporated as the titles did. And what is, our culture value? Well, health and fitness. So what could I do? Well, I could work out all the time. But let's be real for a second, right? Like our culture doesn't actually value, well, I mean, it kind of does value health and fitness, but what it really values is thinness, right? And so it was really thinness that I was chasing, even though honestly, I was already in a thin body. But my body dysmorphia had me have a completely skewed perception of my own body. And somewhere between my freshman and sophomore year, I studied abroad in Italy, and I came back and I had gained some weight, and I had a month between being at home in Ohio to going back to the Heights. And I was like, oh crap, I need to lose this weight as soon as possible. I was also then studying to become a fitness instructor, and I was wanting to work at the Plex. And I was like, well, I have to look a certain way. I have to have a six-pack in order to work at the Plex. And I had all these thoughts in my head. I was like, okay, I can do this. And that's when things began to spiral. I, had dabbled in dieting throughout, middle school and high school, always aware of my weight and feeling guilty around food. But it wasn't until this summer that it really got out of hand. I just became super, super rigid with my rules. So much so that it became very, very, very disordered. And I would start purging as a way to make up for when I broke one of these rules. And nobody knew this. I was so good because I was working so hard to craft and maintain this like perfect girl persona, the perfect Boston College student who, does well in school and looks a certain way and, all of that. I was doing so good at like trying to keep that up, that to the outsider, I looked as happy and confident as could be. And I remember I came back, it's like these very distinct memories, like being by Lower. I lived in Vandy my sophomore year, lucky me, I know, hit the lotto on an 8-man in Vandy. And I can remember distinctly, like even what I was wearing, like these memories are seared into my mind of being back at school, skinnier. I was in Italy and lifeguarding that summer, so I was tanner, and everyone noticed. And everyone was like, oh my God, Julie, like you're so skinny, and making all these comments on my body. Friends of people that, like from freshman year that I never even really talked to were like, oh my God, you look so great, right? And of course, they meant all the goodness in the world. And I was like thriving off of their compliments, like, oh my God, I look so great. This is so awesome. But, really what was happening is that I was learning, okay, it must be true then, right? Like me in this smaller body is better. People like me better if I'm smaller. And the thing was, of course, though, even though I was getting these compliments, even though I had lost this weight, I still had crazy body dysmorphia, never saw myself as other people saw me, still felt like my body was not good enough. I still had to lose weight. I still wasn't good enough to like work at the Plex. I still saw all my flaws, right? Which is really how this wonderful world of dieting often works. We just see more and more of the flaws, the more and more we go down this path of dieting. And luckily, I didn't let this keep me from applying to the Plex. And it was that year that I started working as a fitness attendant and picking up weights after all the gym rats at BC. And then I became a group fitness instructor and I started teaching everything. I became a personal trainer. I taught strength classes and spinning and circuit and like all the things, small group, large group, personal. And I was at the Plex constantly. And again, so much so that I literally became known as Plex Girl. And I'm not just like saying that, it was an actual thing. See, I was at the Plex so much, but then also I would go to classes in between trainings. I was always in like my little trainer shirt like, all the time. And I would literally get into mod parties because people would recognize me as Plex Girl. And senior year, my roommate even dressed up as me as Plex Girl, and everyone knew who she was. I was Plex Girl through and through. And everyone, of course, just thought I was just like fit, healthy, gym loving, obsessed, like Plex Girl. And really, right, what was happening on the inside was that I was struggling hardcore with body dysmorphia and eating disorder and super low self-esteem. And it really was that I had linked all my worth now to how I looked and how I performed at the gym, right? How healthy and fit can I look to the outsider? And that is what I then linked my whole worth and value to. And I continued on this path really until it was the end of my sophomore year. I can't remember like exactly when, but I was home for some party, some family party, some holiday. And my mom always has the best food. She's an amazing cook. And those were always huge triggers for me, like being around all those food and special food, and I'm home. I didn't have my usual control of being on campus. And so I, escaped upstairs to purge, and my sister and best friend caught me. And I don't think even they realized what was happening. They definitely didn't realize that this was a thing I was doing, but just them following me up there and catching me was enough for me to wake up and to be like, okay, well, now my perfect girl cover is blown, right? That I didn't love my body. Like I hated my body and I hated myself at that point, right? And I couldn't figure out why for the life of me, I couldn't just lose the weight. Like why are my thighs still jiggling? Why does my belly still have fat on it? I taught fitness classes. And it was then that I was like, okay, Jules, you got to figure out why you hate your body so much. You got to figure out why you are so crazy around food. And this whole throwing up thing has got to stop. Like this cannot be an answer. This is not okay. You got to stop. And I wish so badly I could tell you guys that I reached out and got help. And please, if you are struggling with any of this, please reach out and get help. I didn't, because I didn't want anyone to know my shameful secret. I mean, I was so ashamed of this that no one could know. And so I just committed myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to figuring this out. I was like, this can't be how I am. This is not okay. This is not healthy. I got to figure out how to have a different relationship with my body. And honestly, when I look back, I was so lucky because I can look back and see how things unfolded. And it's one of those things where it's like, you can never plan it this perfectly yourself. It's like the universe conspires in your favor. And that's the only way I can describe the next series of events that landed me where I am today and helped me overcome these struggles. And so it started with me just getting really curious, and I started noticing, oh my gosh, I'm seeing the same people at the Plex all the time. I see the same girls and even guys, right? Of course, I see the same people like going from class to class and going to on the elliptical for 30 minutes before going to spinning class and all the things. And I saw the same people just like me, right? Like at the dining hall, getting their chicken breast and rice and veggies. And I started to realize then, this is not just a me problem. Like, this is not just a me problem. This is clearly affecting more and more people. Like, I'm not the only one that struggles in my body. That became very clear to me. And it also made sense to me then. I'm like, okay, for me to be healthy, I need to be able to like go to Eagle's Deli and get a burger. And what I would do for those amazing French fries right now, you guys, they're so good. But I need to be able to go to Eagle's Deli, eat a burger and French fries with no guilt and no shame and definitely no purging and no fasting and no exercise penance to make up for it. I just need to be able to like eat a burger and enjoy it. I knew deep in me that like that for me was what I needed to do to be healthy. And then I found yoga, and yoga is a very reflective, practice. And it was through yoga that I started to actually reacquaint myself with my own body. And it was like through the practice of yoga, I became more attuned to her and started listening to her. And I call my body her because she's a person, not an object. And I tried my best in those classes. The teacher would always say, what's your intention? And even though it felt so far away and it felt like a lie, it felt like a straight up lie, every intention I had was, okay, I just want to love my body. Like somehow I just want to love her and not hate her so much. And then I took a health communication class and had the most amazing communication professor, Dr. Dugan. I think she's still there. She's the best. And I had a bunch of research papers to do my junior and senior year. And so I used school as an excuse to study how communication impacts body image. So I had a really good intuition of like, okay, I think somehow the messages I received growing up and all around me have impacted how I view my body. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like read books and like do this research and do it that way. And so I did. And then I landed this dream internship at Women's Health magazine in New York City. And it was like, oh my gosh, dream come true. I'd always wanted to work at like a health and fitness magazine. And there I was with this amazing internship. And I was in the photo department. And it was, my summer between junior and senior year. And it hit me then like a ton of bricks that it was magazines like this I had worshipped growing up. I read them like the Bible. And it became very clear that they were definitely a big part of why I had such an awful relationship with my body. It was like, no wonder I was so obsessed trying to look a certain way. These magazines so clearly and blatantly link thinness to happiness, confidence, love. It's like, it's everywhere. And then I realized, wow, this message that we're all supposed to be a certain body size was everywhere. This message that we should feel guilty for eating certain foods was everywhere. I mean, foods are literally called guilt-free. I mean, what? It's everywhere. And I remember seeing the Photoshop edits made on already like perfect fitness models and realized, oh my gosh, this ideal that we're chasing, it isn't even real. It's not even attainable. These bodies are not literally not real. They're manufactured. And so it was this major moment of, oh crap, like I had been working towards landing a gig in the magazine world. And this internship was supposed to be like my ticket into that, this job after college. And there I was being like, I need to pivot, because I knew in my heart that I couldn't work for a magazine that I felt contributed to women feeling so bad about their bodies and themselves. I really had this huge feeling of like, I really want to be part of the solution. I became just really passionate about being part of the solution. And so I went to grad school instead. And that brought me to Ohio State, where I studied how mass media and interpersonal communication impact body image. True life, my thesis experiment included Beyonce and TLC music videos, but more on that another time. And it was then too that I found intuitive eating, and I found health at every size research, and y'all, my world changed. Finding intuitive eating, health at every size, those were truly the missing piece in my recovery journey. It was like I finally found this solid science that explained my horrible relationship with food, body, exercise. Just yesterday, I was interviewing a therapist on my podcast, and she was like, yeah, when I found the book Intuitive Eating, that is some solid psychology. I'm like, right? And she's a therapist saying that, but it's true. It's like really good science and psychology. And that intuition I had of like, I need to be able to eat a burger and not have it be a big deal was proven. I was like, yeah, that's a thing. Like a healthy relationship with food is really important. And not only that, but I learned too that, that we're supposed to come in different body shapes and sizes, that body diversity is a very real thing. Like, just like we come in different heights, we have different shoe sizes, we also have different body sizes, and that's normal. It's genetic. It is what it is. And in that, I went down the rabbit hole of learning about fat phobia and how praising, thinner bodies as being better than bigger bodies isn't just like hurtful. It doesn't just lead to like body image struggles, but it's actually a very active form of discrimination and oppression with roots in racism. That's a whole thing. If you're curious about that, Dr. Sabrina Strings has a great book called Fearing the Black Body, and it's like a deep dive. And so I really woke up to like, oh my goodness, like not only does dieting not work, is body diversity very real, but like dieting actually really hurts us. But before I go on, I do want to, and this is where it's going to get interactive. So please participate. But I feel like as Boston College people, you will participate. So that's great. Prove me right on that one. I know that, BC has adopted intuitive eating and health at every size as like their paradigm in the Office of Health Promotion, which when I found out, I think I cried. I was like, this is so amazing. I can't believe it. Like, huge, because had I learned this in college, where would I be now? I mean, oh my goodness. I'm like so grateful for that. So I'm curious, chime in the chat, how much, and put like a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is nothing, 10 is like I know everything. When I say intuitive eating or health at every size, give me like a little, so I can kind of gauge. I don't want to like preach to the choir, right? So like, give me a gauge. 3, 8, 4, cool. Good to see. Oh my God, so many like 7s and 8s and 9s. Guys, I love it. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna like just breeze through some of these things then, because I feel like, know it, and then we'll get to my fun exercise, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So I just want to kind of briefly then mention for maybe people who are on the lower end of the scale, not knowing as much about intuitive eating, health, and exercise, no worries. You have a whole Office of Health Promotion that will teach you everything about it, which is fantastic. So great. But for those of you that don't know a lot about it, right, intuitive eating is an evidence-based process. It's an evidence-based process that was created by 2 dietitians that were like, wait a minute, why are all of our patients coming back worse off than we left them? Like the weight's not staying, what's happening here? And they went and did research, and they came up with this beautiful structure that is intuitive eating, that is a step-by-step process that helps us get to know our bodies again and be attuned to our body's cues, like when we're hungry, when we're full, like how much we want to move or rest, all of that. Our bodies are so smart, and eating should be easy and moving should be joyful. Unfortunately, diet culture strips those away from us at a very young age. And so intuitive eating helps us come back to that. And then health at every size is this whole body of research that really shows us, wow, body diversity is real. And the BMI scale is crap. And that people can be healthy in the body size that they're meant to be in. Like some of us are meant to be in much larger bodies. I mean, since graduating from Boston College to today, which I graduated in 2013, it's now 2020, 7 years ago, right? I mean, I've gained like probably 70 pounds because I was not supposed to be that small. I was restricting. I was addicted to exercise, right? And for me, my weight gain has been my body being like, thank God you're now, where you're supposed to be. You're now like restoring your health. And it's why, we all know people who have always been skinny. They'll always be skinny. It's my sister. 5'10", could be on a runway. Like that's just her. It's always been her body. It always will be her body probably, but bodies change. And so some people also live in big bodies and they work out all the time and they eat great food, but they're meant to be in big bodies, right? And this research shows us that. And it really is a beautiful paradigm for how anyone can access and health and can pursue health in a way that is weight neutral and supportive of all different body types. But really, these are the 5, I'll do these quickly, like these 5 foundational truths that I wish I knew when I was in college. And if you're curious about any more of this, the books Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison and Body Respect by Lindo Bacon and Lucy Affermore are 2 of my absolute favorites, of course, along with intuitive eating, that really go into these things. And so if you're like, wait, what? I'm curious. I can't cover it all tonight, obviously. So you can go to that. I also have podcasts. So I'll put that in the chat. So the first thing that I wish I knew is this thing, you guys, that thinness and health are not the same thing, right? That body diversity is real. And it comes back to what's called set point weight theory, right? That we all have our own genetic set point weight range. And that's why, when we lose weight and go below it, our bodies fight us to get back into our set point weight range. It's why 98% of people regain the weight and 60% regain more than they started with. Our bodies are like, hey, you're being starved, does not know we're dieting. It's like, you're being starved. I need to get you back up there. And so our bodies are really smart, and body diversity is real. I wish I knew that. The second thing I wish I knew is that the BMI scale is crap. It just is, right? It was created by mathematicians, never meant to be used in medical settings. And when you look at, and this is all in Body Respect, Lindo Bacon did a lot of digging, like, where did these numbers come from? Like, where did we define these categories of, like, quote, normal weight and quote, overweight and all these things? And they were heavily influenced by the two drug companies who had the only weight loss drugs on the market. So they had a vested interest in us thinking that we needed to lose weight for health so they could make money. What? Crazy, right? And we've now seen in the research that our weight is not strongly correlated with living a longer life. How much we move our bodies is, though, right? I mean, we can see that it's, health is not a size, it's behaviors. It's how are we taking care of ourselves? Number 3, I wish I knew that restricting foods and naming foods as like good or bad is actually what causes binging. It's like the ultimate paradox. We think we create these rules for ourselves. This is good, this is bad, right? And then that leads us to binge because we have this inner rebel. It's like, no, I want that. And then we think, oh gosh, I'm binging. I'm crazy around food. Obviously, I need the rules. And it keeps us in this crazy cycle of restricting and binging. And really what we need is radical full permission. When we have full permission and we're able to reacquaint ourselves with our bodies, we actually develop this really empowered relationship with food. And that's exactly what we do through the process of intuitive eating. That is so powerful. I never used to be able to keep things like goldfish crackers or chips or ice cream or peanut butter in my house or my dorm. And now I do all the time, and it's no big deal. And if someone like me can do it, who was a binger for years, starting in middle school, then you can too. The fourth thing I wish I knew was that our worth is inherent. Our worth is in us from the moment we're born. There's nothing that we have to do to earn our worth. Not getting good grades, not the titles we hold, the president of this, not how our body looks, not how fit we are, how healthy we are. Our worth is just in us because we're human beings. Plain and simple. I wish so badly I knew that. And a little caveat here, right, is that, pursuing health and fitness are wonderful things. I love it. I love cycling to this day. It feels so great. But I wish I knew that, working out a certain way or eating a certain way didn't make me a better person than those who don't, right? Because really having health and fitness is such a privilege, to have the time, the energy, the money, the physical ability to move our bodies in a certain way or afford certain foods or cook dinners or whatever. Like, that is a really big privilege that's just not available to all people. And so we cannot say that like being healthy and fit makes us better and more morally superior. It's a very like elitist thought, right? That I held for so long. And so I wish I knew that. I wish I had grasped that, right? I mean, BC is this wonderful Jesuit, school. I went to a Jesuit high school. It's so social justice oriented. I did a RUPE and all of that, right? And it's a beautiful framework. I feel like a thing that most BC students are like so behind. And I wish I knew that body diversity and body acceptance is social justice. Like it matters. And that leads me to point 5. I wish I knew that the real problem is not weight. It's weight stigma and fat phobia. And there are so many studies that show us the deep harm of judging other people in bigger bodies and also judging ourselves and our own bodies, right? And the deep internalized fat phobia that we have and the real harm that takes place. And I just wish I understood that. And I wish I knew that back then. There's so much fascinating research. Again, body diversity, or body respect, and anti-diet have great info on that for those wanting to learn more. So those are the 5 things I wish so badly that I knew. Ooh, I love it. Janine shared where you guys can learn more about OHP and all the programs. Yes, I love it. So now we're going to pivot into my exercise for you guys on how do you have a healthy relationship with your body. And this is, again, I'm going to ask you guys to participate, and it's just going to be by like putting things in the chat. So super easy. Just do it. Just like buy in, okay? Like make me love you all. Like I know you're the best BC students ever. So, and it's funny because it actually came up today in a client session. And we're talking about body image and what does it mean to have a good body image? What is body image, right? And we had done this before like in session, but we went about it today in a new way. And I think there's this really big myth that we think, oh, having good body image means that I look in the mirror and I'm like, you look good, you know? And sure, can good body image mean that you like how you look? Sure, that can be a part of it. But it has to be so much deeper than that. And the way I love to think about body image is like a relationship. I got married almost 2 years ago. And so I think about it as like a relationship like I have with my husband, Alex. If I only thought Alex was really good looking, then it wouldn't be a very, very good relationship, right? I think we all can kind of laugh and be like, yeah, that'd be a pretty shallow relationship. Like not enough to build a marriage on if you just think he looks good, right? And so same with our bodies, you guys. Is it good if you think you look good? Yeah, sure. But like it has to be so much more than that. And it truly is a relationship. I mean, we all know that voice in our head, right? We talk to ourselves constantly. And so we have to look at what is the relationship I have with my body and with myself. And so I want to ask you guys to chime in the chat. I want you to think about a relationship that you have, whether it's a partner, a best friend, a parent, a sibling, like any, like your closest relationship, your best relationship in your life. And I want you to just type in the chat, what are some of the top qualities that you're like, wow, we have a great relationship because we have this quality, this value, like we have this going for us. Like, what are those things? Respect, you know, things like that. Trust, yes. Honesty, you look at you guys, warmth, respect for each other, fun, patience, boundaries, communication, non-judgment, unconditional love. Yes, able to be ourselves and with each other, true love, accepting of change. Oh my gosh, yes, you guys. See, I knew my BC people would chime in right away. Adventure, fun, play. I love this. Okay, great. So let's look at these different qualities then. Trust. All right. What can we look at? If we're thinking about trust in terms of our body, how might that actually look in terms of your relationship with yourself, like in your body? For me, it means things like, oh, I trust when my body says I'm hungry and I eat. And I trust when I'm full. And most of the times I'll stop when I'm full. Sometimes I'll choose not to, right? But most of the times I'll stop when I'm full. I trust if I'm tired, I sleep more. So we can see how, okay, this is how I can trust my body. I trust my weight gain. I trust my weight gain, you guys. I trust that, you know, and this is why I tell my clients in intuitive eating, right? It's a weight neutral paradigm. And it's like, hey, as you learn how to listen to your body and connect to your body and trust your body and respect your body, it makes sense that whatever happens to your weight along the way is probably meant to be, right? Like if you're showing up for yourself in this beautiful, loving way, we can just really assume that, okay, if my body gains, loses, stays the same, whatever happens that's what's meant to happen. And it's just a neutral thing. And like as I've gained weight over the years, as I needed to for my health, I've trusted, okay, my body must need this. So I trust that. It's so powerful. Honesty, and here's what I'm gonna actually have you guys feel free to unmute and then actually chime in. What? I must need to speak. I believe in you, BC. So, okay, let's look at honesty. How can we look at being honest with ourselves and our bodies? What might that look like? Everyone's like, should I press unmute? Is somebody else going to press unmute? I don't want to talk over somebody. They're like, I don't know. What does it look like to be honest with your body? I think being honest with how you feel, right? Like just being honest with like, okay, yeah, this is how I feel. I'm going to honor and respect that, right? I think honesty can go a lot with respect, which is in that next one, like respecting my body. All right, I'm going to be honest. I'm tired. My body's tired. I'm going to respect that. I'm on the bike and I'm cycling. And you know what? My legs just don't feel that great today. I'm just going to take it easier. I'm going to get off the bike and I'm going to be honest with myself and I'm going to respect that. Right? Like that's how we can see, okay, that's how we can apply these qualities to my body. Respect also our changing body, right? I'm going to respect my body changing. Or think about how you talk to people that you respect. If you respect somebody, do you criticize them all the time? You're like, you suck, I hate you, I don't like how you look. Like, no, right? When you respect somebody, you appreciate them, and you talk kindly to them and you show up for them. And so we can see, okay, so that's how I can then treat my body with that same sort of respect. How about patience? Anyone want to chime in on patience? What might that look like in terms of your relationship with your body?
I would say maybe if you do want to go make some changes, that you don't expect them to happen overnight, and that you like kind of go at a healthy pace. Like when you were talking about in that 1 month, you were trying to like lose all the weight you lost in Italy, and that doesn't sound like neither sustainable nor healthy or loving to yourself.
Right, right, absolutely. So yeah, having patience with ourselves. I think of, say you try like doing a new form of movement or you're new to exercise, right? Being patient as you get to learn yoga, for instance, or you're new to cycling or whatever it is. Yeah, maybe be patient with ourselves and our bodies as we learn this new way. Or yeah, like with intuitive eating, right? Can we be patient with ourselves as we go through this process? That patience is so key. How about boundaries and communication? That's a good one. It's very important. Anybody? Okay. I would say, for instance, with this one, boundaries and communication, this can really come into play in terms of when you are working on, really enhancing your own relationship with your body. This, I would set boundaries with myself and I would set them with other people. And so, for instance, I'd be like, all right, I want to change the way that I'm talking to myself instead of boundary, right, with that. So it's like, hey, self, I'm not going to tolerate all this body checking anymore. And not to say that you're gonna set this boundary and all of a sudden you're like not going to do it anymore. Hi, we're human beings, right? But we at least say to ourselves, we communicate, all right, hey, I'm going to set this boundary and try my best, and just acknowledge when we get into that space of body checking or criticizing our bodies, and to notice it, and then at least then in a moment stop, right? And say, nope, I'm not respecting my body. I'm going to stop right there. And so it can be having those boundaries for ourselves, but then it can also be voicing boundaries to other people in your life. So I've had a lot of clients, when they embark on this work, a big thing is, I got to tell people in my life, hey, no more diet talk around me, or I'm trying really hard to treat my body with more respect and to like say nice things to her. So whenever you're around me, I'd appreciate it if you don't criticize your own body when I'm around. Like those are really powerful ways to set boundaries for our own growth. Ability to laugh. Even that, you guys, can be applied to our relationship with our bodies, right? Can we not take things so seriously? If you're like going to a cycle class or like a Zumba class or something, can you just like laugh and have fun with it? A client today was like, Julie, I've realized that for so long I was working out as if I was some like elite athlete. She goes, I'm not a professional athlete. Why was I taking it so seriously? Why was I going crazy? Like, I'm just trying to like move my body to feel good. I'm like, oh my God, I know. I was the same way, right? And it's great. It's great if you love to like do that stuff. Great, right? But just being light, I think, with ourselves, like, hey, we're not pro athletes. I'm not going to the Olympics here. I just want to move my body and take care of myself, right? Like, we can kind of laugh and take it easy. I love this one too, of accepting of change, right? Accepting of change. Our bodies are meant to change. I think especially the female body, right? I mean, we have children. We go through a lot. Like, our bodies are meant to change. We're not meant to look the same way that we did when we were in high school, even though like that's the narrative. It's like everyone's trying to get their high school body back. That's crazy. We're not trying to get our 10-year-old body back, are we? Like, no. And yet here we all are, like, holding ourselves to the standard of like how we used to be. We get wiser, we get smarter, our bodies also change, right? We change on the inside, we also change on the outside. And it's not a bad thing, but we're told it is, right? Because our culture attaches worth to looking this certain way. And so it's acknowledging that and being like, okay, yeah, I'm going to change. And the more we can accept the fact that we're always going to be changing and our bodies are always going to change, we free ourselves up from so much mental drama. And then I love this one too, Janine said, of, love. And I think this is where I'll probably stop, and then I'll open up to like questions and things. But this idea of true love, like, what does that mean in terms of your body? Because I think that's another thing that just like body image, that people, when they think of loving their bodies, they can get really confused about, because because our culture wants us to think that loving your body is loving how you look, right? And it's more like lust, honestly. That's what diet culture wants us to think. It's like, I love how I look at me, oh yeah, like in your sports bra, like whatever. But that's not, again, just like body image isn't about loving how you look in the mirror. Loving our bodies also isn't about loving how we look. It's not that like lustful kind of love. It's, to me, I think about it like it's an action, right? It's a verb. Like, loving my body is taking care of myself. It's loving is caring. Just as we care, like, I have this adorable Bernese Mountain Dog who's the love of my life. And how do I love my dog Maple? I take her on walks and I feed her every day and I tell her I love her and we nap and snuggle, right? Like, how do you care for anybody else in your life or even a pet, right? Well, we can just apply it to ourselves. Oh, loving myself and loving my body means I'm gonna make sure I eat, because eating's really important. And I'm gonna make sure I sleep. And maybe you're gonna like breathe and meditate to like calm down on all the chaos, So I want to encourage you all to think about loving your body as being an action. It is an action. Loving our bodies, how we're showing up for our bodies. Just like, again, we think about a relationship, I can't just like say, Alex, I love you. I have to like treat him with love. It's one thing if I say, I love you, and then I treat him like crap. It's like, words are hollow, right? Love is action. And so to think about loving your body in that action. So look at that. I did it. I stopped right at 7:45. I want to make sure I give time for like any questions at all, like anything at all about, it can be about intuitive eating, it could be a health at every size, it could be about like my story, it could be anything at all. If you want to know, like, how do I have a better relationship with exercise? Yeah, let's go. Whatever it is you guys want to know, I'm happy to answer any questions. Mm-hmm.
Well, one, thank you for doing this. This was awesome. I learned so much. Yeah. My name's Franny. I'm a grad student, and I work in the Office of Health Promotion. Some of the names I see in here are wellness coaches, and they specifically will do conversations about body image. And so I'm curious, what would you say to not only the wellness coaches, but everybody in the call? What would you say, or what advice do you have for people who are having those conversations with people, sitting with people who will potentially, and we all might even have them too, but we all have those struggles with body image. How do you sit with somebody through that?
Yeah. Do we have like 10 days? I'll try and keep this short, but great question, because it is such a nuanced thing. I think I'll share with you guys three things. The first, I think, is I always try to like really root myself into compassion, and come back to, I'll just like root back to when I was going through that, right? And having so much compassion for them. that's, I think, number one, and realizing that we have body image struggles, not because it's not really about wanting to look a certain way. It's about what we think that's going to give us, right? My pursuit of thinness was, yeah, about being thin, but not really. What it was really about was I wanted to fall in love. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to, be healthy. I wanted to have friends. I wanted these deeper things, connection, belonging, safety. And in a world, especially that, again, we live in a world built for thin bodies. And that's not okay. And we live in a world where, again, weight stigma is very real. And people I live in a thinner body. I've always benefited from thin privilege. Always, and I think it's really important that we remember that. And so it's like, oh yeah, especially for somebody in a bigger body, it makes so much sense that they would want to lose weight because it's safer, right? Because our culture wants people in thin bodies. Unfortunately, we know, of course, that dieting is really harmful, and that intentional weight loss doesn't work, and it's going to hurt us even more. But I think it's really important to remind ourselves why people have that struggle. It's because they want this richer experience of life, or they just want safety. They want love and belonging. And I think it's so important to come back to that, right? Okay, that's really what's at the root of this. So I think that to start with. And then one of the really key things, and I love that now I know that a bunch of you guys are the wellness coaches. One of the things I studied in grad school that has been really at the core of my own coaching and what I do with my clients, and I always have this in the back of my mind, there's this theory called self-discrepancy theory, and it's super complex, and so I'm not going to give you guys the complex version. You don't need it. You don't need the complex version to integrate this into your work. But basically, we have these three versions of ourself, these three ways that we see ourselves. There's the actual self, which is how we see ourselves, we think we actually are. Well, this is how I actually am. Often that can be skewed, but it's how we think that we are. And then we have our ideal self, right? The version of ourselves that we want to be. Unfortunately, most of us think we're chasing our ideal self. I thought back at BC, I was chasing my ideal self. Well, my ideal self looks this way, behaves this way, is this way, right? What I didn't realize was that I wasn't actually pursuing my ideal self. I was pursuing the third piece, my ought self. The OUGHT, ought self, my should self, right? And so most of us, and this goes through so many areas of life, we think we're pursuing our ideal self, but we're pursuing our ought self. We're pursuing the version of ourselves that we think everyone else thinks that we should be. Well, they think I should be thin so that I look that way for them. And I should have this job because it'll please my parents. And if I do this, it'll please that person. And I have to be this person for everybody else. And so we're chasing our ought self and not actually our ideal self, not actually who we want to be, who we actually are. And we have a lot of body image struggles, or just self struggles in general, self-esteem struggles, when the gap between that ideal ought self is really big between the actual self. When that gap is really big between who we think we are and who we want to be, that's when we have so much struggle and strife. And so I love to help my clients, get clear on ideal versus ought. And what do you actually want? Who do you actually want to be? What will actually bring you joy? And what's really cool is that then we work on narrowing that gap. And when they begin to throw out all the things that are just shoulds, that aren't actual desires, what usually happens is that gap narrows just by itself. And then they're like, wait a minute, I'm actually my ideal self is actually not that far away, and their ideal self is actually this positive thing of pursuing their better self. And so keeping that in mind is okay, my job is to narrow this gap of who they think they are versus who they want to be. That right there is the power. And then I guess the third piece is really diving into their body story, right? Really getting back into where did they learn that their body was wrong? What were those influences? It's been so healing for me to look back at my own story of whoa, my mom always dieted. No wonder I thought I had to diet. Really all the adults in my life were complaining about their bodies and jiggling their bellies. What's wrong with me, right? And no blame on them. They didn't know that they were hurting me. They meant no harm, right? But that's how I took it, you know. And then there's movies and media and magazines. Like, we want to like really get clear on their own experience. So there's a lot there, but I hope that helped. Anybody else?
Joy, I have a question for you. Thank you so much first for sharing your time with us. I thought it was really fascinating how you brought up like in 5th grade that Pilates commercial, and then when you went to do the internship with the magazine, and like how that like showed you that a lot of your stuff came from the influences outside of yourself. And I'm wondering now with social media and like people always being on their phones, how do you think we can like make sure that we're not unconsciously being like hearing that message even more?
Such a good question. This is why I love doing Q&As, because my gosh, these questions are so good, right? Great questions. I often will do this with my clients all the time. And one of the first things we'll do is like a social media purge. And I'll have them get really honest and go through their Instagram or whatever and look at, okay, who triggers me? Or what content, even if it's like well-intentioned, is still praising a smaller body as better? What content is still putting a moral stamp on their food choices? Which content is just triggering it anyway? Like, and to look at that, and if it's a friend, there's a wonderful mute button. So like, I'm gonna unfollow your friends. Here for the mute button. Great for mental health. Or of course, with some like Fitspo account, you can just unfollow them, right? But to really first do that purge. And then here's the great thing, like when I was growing up, right, when a lot of us were growing up, like we didn't have social media. We only had magazines and TV and movies, which meant that there were these gatekeepers who were determining who we're seeing. And we only saw thin bodies. I mean, I grew up Mary-Kate and Ashley, right? Like we only saw like those, like Paris Hilton, like those thin bodies. So that actually the really good thing about social media is that we are in charge of who we see. And so I can go onto my feed, and actually I have a guide that I'll send it Kenny, or yeah, and he can give to you guys. I have a whole guide that has like 50 handles of diverse, body inclusive, health at every side, like wonderful accounts to follow. Because that's a really big thing too, is in this, when we're doing intuitive eating, body image healing work, it's so helpful to like surround yourself with it as much as possible. I'll tell my clients, it's like creating your own little bubble, you know? And so it's like, can your social media reflect that? Because there's so many great accounts out there and great people to follow, and body diversity and diversity of all kinds, right, to follow. And when we see more of that, and this is like really a lot of what I studied in grad school, like when we see more of that, that becomes our new normal. And you know, like when all we see is like one thin white body, of course, then that's what we think in our head as like, that's the net, right? So wrong. We all know that. But then when we are able to diversify who we see, all different ethnicities, all the different things, all different sizes, abilities, like, oh my gosh, that then teaches our brains, look at how different we all are. That is so normal. And that is a beautiful thing. And look at, we're just one more diverse person to fit into that array. So that's really, 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 really powerful. And in that bubble too, this isn't social media, but like podcasts are such a great way. I don't know if college, I mean, I think, yeah, they weren't a thing when I was in college. I wish they were. But like podcasts are great. And, you know, social media and creating that bubble, books and all that stuff you can do to like immerse yourself in that world. Huge. Great question. Anybody else? Yeah.
I have another question. I think, I mean, for myself, when learning about health at every size, intuitive eating, these are like groundbreaking,
right,
evidence-based, you know, things. These are, this it's not the norm, but it kind of should be the norm, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think too, another thing that I often think about is body image as a struggle that only female identified people have. How do you encourage people of all identities to speak about this? I mean, specifically at BC, we're trying to engage male identified students in this conversation too, but find it really difficult to do so. How do we engage more people in this conversation?
Such a good question. And it's funny because recently I've had more and more like male identifiers come to me and being like, hey, do you know people who do this work that are, not females? And so it's really important. And I think the key is having as many people sharing this message and having these conversations that are as diverse as possible. Because I think it's like, for instance, like my clients or people who follow me on Instagram or like listen to my podcast, like they relate with me, right? And my lived experience. But my lived experience obviously is just mine. It's narrow to like who I am. And so we obviously then need as many diverse people coaching and doing this work and sharing as much as possible so that as many people as possible are like, oh, wow, like he's like me, I identify with him, like we're similar. Oh my God. And then they're your people, you know what I mean? Like then you inspire them and you work with them. And so I think you like sharing your voice, right, and being active in this space is big. And I think, that's where it has to start, right? Is like who's leading these conversations. We need as many diverse people as possible so we can bring in as many diverse people as possible.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. Let's keep in touch because that's awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Last 2 minutes, any last burning questions? Look at that. We're going to wrap up like right on time. All right. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to get to reconnect with BC. I love you guys so much. I was texting one of my Boston College friends before this. She's like, oh, what a proud Eagle you are. And I'm like, I really am. Like, have my BC license plate covered. Like, love it. So it was good to feel connected back again to my alma mater. And I'm always here, guys. I'll give Kenny or somebody my info for you guys. Don't hesitate to reach out. Like, I am here for you. I love you guys already because you're BC people. So I'm yours. Like, let me know whatever you need. Thanks for coming, guys. All right, this is where we sign off.
Thank you, Julie. That was so fabulous.
I'm so glad. Thanks, guys. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Julie. So good to see you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
We'll be reaching out soon.
I love it.
Thank you.
All right, Kenny, I'll send you like the recording and all of that tomorrow morning. Is that cool?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
All right.
Thank you very much for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.
Did you like that little treat I didn't tell you was coming?
Oh my God, yes.
Once you agree